Abusiafo aha eye Ghanatube so ensem a ekoso ewo Ghana four corners ni gina no eno ena channel we de ebro matenase fefefe mekwako medensem aba abusiafo entempa ni dimechi na yenkotie ensem bia ekoso ewo omani.
The MPP minority is tonight sounding the alarm about what they call a presidential vacuum that they claim has left the country without a president, acting or substantive. As of this morning, President John Mahama was in Togo. The Vice President is still on sick leave. The Speaker of Parliament, we understand, is also out of the jurisdiction. Minority member on the Finance Committee, Dr. Tia Kabiru, says the country is tonight without leadership, although it isn't yet clear if the acting Chief Justice had been formally sworn in to act as President.
In all this discussion, we don't even know where the president is. We don't even know where the vice president is. We don't even know where the speaker is.
Of course, you know where the president is in Togo as of this morning. The vice president is still on medical leave in the United Kingdom. The Speaker of Parliament, it's unclear for me where he is, but the president we know is in
clearly Togo. This country is without leadership because the Constitution provides that in the absence of the president, the vice president, in the absence of both the speaker, right? In the absence of the speaker, the chief justice, we don't have chief justice. As to whether acting chief justice can be acting president, it's even an issue. So
as a member of parliament, we are not aware of any kind of transfer of power in the absence of the president.
The president has not communicated to members of parliament. He might have communicated to the speaker, and the speaker has the responsibility of informing members of parliament.
But are you aware whether there's been any kind of a temporary swearing-in ceremony in the absence of the president?
I'm not aware of any of such. And if anyone is aware, they should educate us, right? But these are issues that I will defer. But it's something that we must be worried that the president and the vice president and the speaker can just get up and leave the country and leave everyone wondering where we are, when the Constitution provides that when someone is not there, this person should be sworn in to take these duties.
The law says that in the absence of the president, the vice president should act. The vice president, as we know as of now, is still on medical leave in the United Kingdom. In the absence of the vice president, is the Speaker of Parliament. Well, as far as I know, we are not privy to any kind of a swearing-in ceremony as demanded by the Supreme Court. And then in the absence of the Speaker of Parliament, it is the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice on suspension, the acting is still in office, but nothing official as far as the change of command is concerned.
Yeah, I hold the view that acting Chief Justice is not the Chief Justice. And he cannot be made to superintend over the country. It's an issue for constitutional interpretation. Maybe someone will have to invoke that and ask for clarity, right? I know Kukaza had cause or someone had a cause about the swearing in, whether the person must necessarily be swearing in. They must necessarily be some swearing in. The Supreme Court actually had the ruling that yes, it must necessarily be sworn in. It cannot be by way of, by default, once the person is not there, the person acts. So we have jurisprudence, we have precedence, guidance of this. But when both or the three of them are not there, and we have acting Chief Justice, it's a constitution.
You think it creates a vacuum?
Clearly, if there's a decision to take, even though there are other people who hold the view that if the president is not physical within the president,
he can still conduct his business.
Yeah, but
because of technology.
But the court disagrees with that. The court disagrees with that.
He must be physically present in the country.
He must be physical.
Once you are out of the jurisdiction.
Once you are out of the jurisdiction, you are not the president so-called, proper so-called. They must at all point in time be someone physical president within the jurisdiction of Ghana, right? That's what the Supreme Court decided on. So the president doing wireless meetings, doing online meetings, or asking the chief, that is not the president within the country. It is a president at large, okay? And it's an issue that people, the lawyers and then the constitutional experts should be asked.
But is the minority taking any keen interest in this matter?
Yes, I'm privy to some discussion. Some minority members, especially those within the constitutional and legal affairs committees, are raising that we are not hearing anything. Is it the case that it's a country that we say no one can decide to do anything? Maybe they will come out once we begin to broach discussion. The president, in the interest of the nation, the communication director should put to bear the arrangement so that everyone will know that this was what was done. This is the arrangement. This is the person in charge, so that we all know that Mr. Bafo-Boni is the president acting. Then we'll know.
And that is Tia Kabiru speaking to us a short while ago on the subject of the whereabouts of the president and whether or not we have an acting president in place, or this country is operating without leadership. And there are a few things that we know tonight, and my colleague, parliamentary correspondent, Kweku Asante, joins me in the studio with more on this. Kweku, so let's start with the president. Where is the president?
We know that the president was in the United Kingdom before the end of last week. He did go to visit his vice president, Professor Nana Ajinopoku-Agyeman. As of this morning, the president was in Togo, where he has been attending a high-level forum of the African Union, and he actually delivered a speech there. Our understanding is that the president will actually move to the Côte d'Ivoire for some further bilateral talks and other issues tomorrow, and so the president is not set to return. At least between today and tomorrow, the president will not be there. And if you read the Constitution, Article 60, it says whenever the president is absent from Ghana or is for any other reason unable to perform the functions of his office, the vice president shall perform those functions. The vice president shall, before commencing to perform those functions, subscribe to the oath. And then it goes on and on that where the vice president also not around, it will be the speaker and up to the chief justice. We know that for the last 2 months, the vice president, of course, all of us know she has not been around. She's in the United Kingdom. The speaker of parliament last week was in the country, but this afternoon we have confirmed that the speaker of parliament has also traveled out of the country.
Okay, so the first three
are all not around.
As we speak tonight,
yes,
they're not in Ghana. They're not in the jurisdiction.
Exactly. In fact, there were those who were asking questions that since the president had traveled, and even at the time the speaker was around, had there been a swearing in of the speaker of parliament to perform the functions of the president? Because we know that in the Doha Jaho case, the Supreme Court was clear that even if the speaker of parliament has to act, he has to subscribe to the oath of the presidency before he can act. The Speaker of Parliament was in town, but as of this morning, the confirmation is that the Speaker of Parliament is also currently not in Ghana as we speak. That will mean that the baton shifts to the next in line, which is the acting Chief Justice, Paul Bafuboni. It is not yet clear if Bafuboni has taken the oath of the president to act in this temporal time, whilst the president, vice, and speaker are all not around. We do not know that for a fact, but the president, the vice president, the speaker of parliament are all not currently in Ghana.
So the only unknown tonight is whether or not the acting chief justice has officially been sworn in to act as president. That hasn't been communicated. We've been checking ourselves. Yes. There is no clarity on that particular matter, whether that has happened. And if indeed he hasn't been sworn in, then it raises constitutional questions whether indeed, as the minority is alleging tonight, there isn't leadership for this particular country. And if he's been sworn in, there is a subsequent question: can an acting chief justice act as president? Yeah. Interesting constitutional questions. I want to bring in Professor Kojo Pejutia, Associate Professor, School of Law, University of Ghana, joins us on the line right now. Prof, I'm grateful for your time here on News Night. So the only unknown tonight, we know that the president is out, we know the vice is out, we know the speaker is out. The only unknown tonight is whether or not the acting Chief Justice has been sworn in to act as president. Does it raise any fundamental questions for you where we are tonight?
Thanks for having me, Evans. Yes, it does. It does raise serious constitutional issues as well as governance issues. As Article 60 of our Constitution says, in line of succession, if you like, when the president is not in, the vice president takes over. In the absence of the vice president, it is a speaker. And the absence of the speaker or the president, the vice, and the speaker not being there, then it shifts to the chief justice. So here we have a scenario where the three are not in the country, and therefore, according to the constitutional provisions, it is the Chief Justice that should assume the position of president.
So you asked the question, the lack of communications that we now have, there's a vacuum one when it comes to the communication about what really has happened. Should that be an integral part of this process for the sake of transparency?
Definitely, because you don't know what will happen in the next second or the next minute. As things stand, the presidency has created a lack of communication, and that is a serious governance issue, because as we speak, if something should happen and the president has to act, according to the Constitution, the president has to be physically present in the country. Of course, there are certain things the president can do, and probably that is one thing that the Constitution should be clear about, and something that maybe the Constitution Review Commission should look at. Because there are certain things that the president can do while outside the country, and therefore he should still be deemed to be the president. But according to the Constitution as we have it today, if he's out of the country, he's no more serving as the president. And so there should be communication about that. And so even in the case of the speaker, when the president was not in, and we know that the vice president is also not in, he should have been sworn into office. And when he was leaving, measures should have also been taken for him to hand over to the Chief Justice. And the Chief Justice would then have been sworn in by the most senior of the justices at the Supreme Court. And that should have been a clear situation where steps have been taken to fill all the gaps. And therefore, the current president should be the acting Chief Justice.
Should the swearing-ins, should they have been public, such as we would have seen the speaker at the time that the president was leaving the jurisdiction actually sworn in, or should they simply have been by way of communication to us that he has been sworn in? What's the best practice?
The best practice is for the Chief Justice in this case to have been sworn in publicly, so that we all know that this is the Chief Justice now acting as the president.
Can an acting Chief Justice act as president?
Definitely. According to the Constitution now, he is acting as the Chief Justice. And so we don't have any other Chief Justice apart from him acting as the Chief Justice. So he holds that power. If there is no situation where that responsibility can be given to anybody else, it is he acting as the Chief Justice. And so in that respect, he qualifies constitutionally to assume that position.
Thank you very much.
Madam Asapa Samudi Mechi Emaikotie and Semno with me an opportunity to share views on the issues at our comment section. Now, you better break akinkai Nina Ede Amorfe as my message Musono, Mema Uwe Fisel Obe subscribe. Now I hit notification link in the so Ediaman Fefe Afiso. Mema Uwe Fisel Obe share Nefefe. Everything for aha. Eye Ghanatube send them the Modofo Snow, Minam Tenase, Eden Sem, Emperor, Sisi Adi, Macam.